Hi class, so I'm back, Professor Brennan, part 3 of communicating nonverbally for my interpersonal communication class. Let's go. All right, so we just talked about body orientation, and we're going to move to the next slide, which is going to have us look at posture. Oh, this is a terrible slide when I put it up this big, but I'm just going to point out these different things here. Let me get myself out of the way. Down here, over here somewhere. What do these different sitting positions indicate about the person? How are you sitting right now while you're watching this video? Are you sitting? Are you standing? What are you doing? We're going to talk about posture, but I'm also going to talk about sitting positions as well. Then I'm not going to show you pictures, but I want to have a conversation about it because I think it's interesting. So slouch sitting, what does that mean? Like kind of engaged, but not really engaged. Forward head posture. What does that mean? Could it mean ready to go? Does it mean like, yeah, I'm kind of listening. That's still kind of like interested, not interested. Oh, excuse me. And sitting at attention, right? Really, your attention is there. And sitting forward. So forward means like you are really listening. You're involved. You're participating. You're attentive. So these are different sitting positions. Think about when you're in the classroom and what happens with you and your sitting positions. I'm going to actually bring it back right now because I want to talk to you guys. So here's an interesting thing that you should take note. The next time you're in a place, in a public place, of how the difference between how men and women sit. Like right now, I'm sitting at my desk and my legs are crossed. I don't need to have my legs crossed, but I'm doing it. Now, actually women have been socialized to cross our legs and to like put our hands, you can't see really, our hands in our lap, and the whole point of that is to take up as little space as possible. Okay, in contrast, if you have a man, he's going to sit, let's see if you can see me do this, he's going to sit like this. You guys can't see me. With his legs out like this, you know, I have shorts on now. And he's going to sit comfortably. Sometimes he'll sit back, but he's going to do that. Now, I always make the joke it's to give them some room, right? But it's more than that. Men are encouraged to take their space, to create space around them, and to have that space. They're empowered to do so. It's acceptable to do so. Okay? And they always just sit back. They're comfortable with themselves. They don't need to like worry about, this is how they create this sense of power. Kind of like, remember when we're talking about the power stance, but they're taking their space. So women, check it out, women. Women, try it. Try sitting. What does it feel like to sit in the man, kind of in the man position? And then men, what would it feel like for you to be smaller? Play this. Just check it out. See what happens. It's interesting stuff. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now. I think this stuff is interesting. Here we go. So we are here. Keep going. Make sure it's still okay. For a second, I thought I was not recording. Okay. So now we're going to look at types of gestures. And there's 4 different types that we're going to focus on. The first type is called an illustrator. What the heck is an illustrator? So an illustrator is a gesture that can't stand by itself. Okay? It won't make sense if it's alone. But if it has verbal communication with it, so gestures, right? It's nonverbal communication. If it has verbal communication with it, then it will make sense. It has to come from a verbal speech. So let's say you're sitting, you're talking to someone, and they ask you a question, and you start like doing this, you're scratching your head. So if you said like this, you know what, I need to think about that, right? You might like, it's not, might the scratching your head might just look like you're scratching your head, but that actually might make you think like that's like one of your little things that you do when you're not sure about something. But the whole point is any nonverbal action that you do without words won't make sense. A lot of these times, these things are culture bound or contextually bound. Emblems, on the other hand, is something that we often know what it means, right? They're understood by one's cultural group. If you don't know, like everybody knows the peace sign. Now everybody like, what is this? I think it's this. Hang loose. I think that's how you do hang loose. And then this is like I love you in sign language, but I think this is hang loose. Yeah, hang loose like this. That's in Hawaiian. But there are certain things that we know specifically that mean a particular thing depending on one's cultural group. An adapter, on the other hand, is something non-verbally that you do with your body that you're unconscious. It's often responding to your environment. Okay, it's usually like sometimes if you meet someone and their arms are across themselves like this, right? And they're standing there and they've got their arms across. It may not mean that they're closed off. They could just be cold, right? The things that we do, maybe you do this. It's actually a little cold in my room right now. That, right? There's different things that you do. And now manipulator is a gesture you do to make yourself feel better. So things like, or could reveal something about you. So when you do this in class, girls do this in class, right? It can be like a little anxious thing, but it actually has this tendency to make someone feel better. The self-touching behaviors that we do that make us feel better. Okay, so it could be hair twirling, nail biting. I talked about that already. All right, let's go on. Face and eyes. Eyes say so much about a person, right? So when we think of face and eyes, we're thinking of what we call micro expressions when we talk about faces and pupil dilation. Now, there used to be a show on TV where the guy studied, I can't remember the name of the show and I always forget it. He was like an FBI guy or something. He studied people who deceived others. And we have micro expressions that we make that actually can happen really, really quickly. Like it can happen so quick that only the people that really know each other well can pick it up. Okay, you with me? But that's what when we call micro expressions. But someone who's good at and here's the other thing. There's some of these expressions are general across cultures and across gender. Okay, that's how they also study them. Some of them are culturally bound, but a lot of times these micro expressions are about being a human. Pupil dilation. When we get excited, our pupils get bigger. Okay, we're not just talking about sexual arousal. We're talking about like when we get happy, when we're really excited about something, or if we're afraid. So here's an example. It's this dude. He had a TV show. It was just a fictional TV show, and I can't remember what the name of it is. But he studied facial expressions or people for deception. So disgust, nose wrinkling, upper lip raise. So you're right. You go ew, right? We do that. We know exactly what ew is. What does that look like? Ew, right? And contempt. Like our little lip goes up a little bit, right? And we're like, whatever, like an attitude. Maybe even our head goes back a little. That's what my head wants to do is like, or sideways, like whatever. So we have it. We know we have certain things we do as humans to communicate emotion non-verbally. Voice and touch. So voice. Also, the study of paralanguage is the study of tone, pitch, volume, intonation, and it looks at what we do with the voice and how we tell something about that person, how we interpret something about that person based upon their voice. So tone. Is someone monotone? Are they talking at the same pitch and there's no change? That's a monotone, right? Or sounding like this and they're just talking in their monotone voice, the kind of voice where you just go to sleep to? Or do they have some pitch up and down, all around? We go up and down, up and down, up and down. And that, the pitch also could say excitement, or think about when you've been excited and how like high it can go. The volume too indicates some kind of emotional, whether you're feeling really down, so your volume's even a little down, or whispering, or you're getting louder and louder and louder and louder. That, what does that mean? Usually it means excitement or some kind of emotional feeling. That's like, it's a big feeling. Your intonation, oftentimes that's regional. Like, where's your intonation? And Canadians, at the end of their sentences, their intonation goes up. It's interesting. Like, it sounds like they're asking a question. Okay, unintentional pause. That also is part of understanding voice. Like, if you ask a question and someone just kind of looks at you and you wonder, like, if you ask an important question, like, do you want to marry me? And they look at you and they're kind of like deer in headlights, right? That can say a lot. Like, but you don't know what it says, but it says something, right? It doesn't say no, it doesn't say yes, you're not even sure. Okay, vocalized pause is like, right? That's a vocalized pause. Okay, haptics. Haptics is the study of touch. We're going to get into that a little bit in a minute. So when we're talking about physical touch, right? The study of physical touch. Interesting stuff. This is straight out of your textbook. There's different kinds of touch. We've got that functional professional touch. That was at that picture where you saw people, actually that wasn't handshaking, was it? It was just hands touching. So that looks more like friendship to me. That looks like friendship. Okay. But handshaking, when you shake someone's hand, right? That's part of we touch each other when we meet. When we're first meeting someone, generally we touch. Some people hug. I'm a hugger, but not so much a hugger. I can be a hugger, but I'd rather not. I'd rather just shake your hand and hug you later. That's just kind of the way I am. It seems real, right? For me, like if I go to a church setting and they want me to hug someone that I don't know, there's something weird about, and that's just me. There's just something weird about it for me. Being social polite touch is like, I do that with my students. Like they're talking and I'll touch them and I'll like say, I'll just do naturally touch, right? We're back to that gender thing of how women touch more than men, but I'll just lightly touch their shoulder or I'll touch their hand, or they might even touch me, right? That's a whole other thing in touch in terms of the direction of touch when it comes to power differentials between people in their roles, right? The power of touch from someone who has more power than someone else and what that means and how that person interprets it. There's a whole study of that. Interesting. Okay. Friendship warmth, giving a hug, giving a bear hug, giving a big hug, giving like hug and kiss on the cheek, friendship warmth, holding someone's hand, right? Love intimacy, another kind of touch where you hold someone's hand and maybe you hold it to your face or kiss it, or you really bring them in and hold them and love them, right? Or you lay down on the couch with them while you're watching TV. And then finally, the obvious one, sexual arousal. But notice how there's all these different levels of touch. So that touch is literally to arouse, or when you feel sexual with someone, the way you touch that person. And it's different than love intimacy. In fact, I'm going to say this last thing before I have to go, is that, and we'll go on to the next video, is that oftentimes between men and women, these two things are confused. When a woman wants intimacy and the man wants sex, and it can be vice versa, but this can happen, especially in heterosexual relationships and homosexual relationships as well. Okay, I'm stopping there.